This is Lecture 2, Introduction to the Strategic Perspective for Political Science 4327, Introduction to International Relations. The strategic perspective alerts us that foreign policy is a part of domestic politics. Leaders must balance their constituents' interests and the desires of foreign rivals. There are four basic categories of international problems: coordination, distribution, monitoring, sanctions. Two factors will allow us to differentiate between governments: the size of the selectorate, those with a say in choosing the leader, and the size of the winning coalition, those in the electorate whose support is essential to keep a leader in office. These two factors allow us to explain and predict how leaders of these governments will act. Polities with large winning coalitions emphasize public good over private rewards. They are also more likely to enjoy prosperity and peace with one another, but their leaders stay in office only a short time. Polities with small winning coalitions and a large electorate tend to produce kleptocracy, poor public policies, corruption, and rent-seeking, and yet their leaders stay in office for a long time. Different political systems provide different incentives to leaders who want to stay in power. Domestic politics involves the selection of leaders by leaders of policies designed to keep them in office. For example, after September 11, 2001, the Taliban leadership refused to break with Al-Qaeda in the face of the U.S. threat of invasion. Another example is the need of support from religious parties prevents Israeli prime ministers from halting West Bank settlement expansion and negotiating peace with Palestine. The Israel-Palestine dispute can be stylized as a two-player game of chicken. Players must choose between swerving or going straight, holding firm to their preferred policies, thus risking a violent collision. Rows represent Israeli prime minister's choices, and columns represent the Palestinian Authority's prime minister's choices, as you can see in your book on table 2.1. Each decision maker's payoffs depend on what the other does. Some common conjecture about how the game is played would allow them to take turns at swerving. The strategic perspective explains why domestic politics sometimes forces them to both swerve, but most of the time to go straight. As we talked about before, there are four categories of problems in international affairs. The first is coordination, and that involves how to pursue common goals. Distribution, how to allocate scarce resources. Third, monitoring. This is how to detect cheating on agreements. And fourth, sanctioning. How to punish the cases of cheating. Domestic politics complicates such problems and attempts to solve them. We cannot understand international negotiations without understanding what negotiators' constituents and their foreign counterparts can begin to accept. Leaders are susceptible to the principal-agent problem. Leaders, which would be classified as an agent, may misrepresent their constituents, the principal preference, and only do what is good for them. Asymmetry in information and control over rules allows them to do so. We tend to choose leaders for their skills in managing domestic issues and risk ending up with leaders incompetent in foreign policy. This is called adverse selection. Politics is the domain of competition among groups and individuals for special advantages. Leaders must figure out how to keep their job and their head. Providing peace and prosperity is not always the obvious answer. Kings and dictators face a moral hazard. They do better at surviving in office when they promote corruption and cronyism. If they survive the first few months in office, autocrats stay in power longer than democratic leaders. You can see this from figure 2.1 in your book. You can see that once they get past the first 6 months, the probability that they're going to be taken out of power becomes less and less. And we see this in places like Cuba. The selectorate perspective represents one version of the strategic perspective. Leaders build a coalition of supporters among the selectorate, denoted as S, which consists of those who have a say in choosing its leaders. The winning coalition, denoted as W, is a subset of the electorate whose support a leader needs to stay in office. Leaders can retain their supporters' loyalty by giving them more benefits than domestic opponents can credibly promise. Benefits come in two forms. The first is private goods, benefiting only those who receive them, and public goods, government policies benefiting all people, such as national security, free speech, etc. Leaders pay for private and public goods from taxation, national resources, and foreign economic assistance. 5 rules govern political survival. Depend on as few people to stay in power as possible. Draw that small coalition of supporters from a pool of people as possible, from as large a pool of people as possible. Tax people as much as possible insofar as they are not so miserable that they want to revolt. Reward essential backers just enough so they will not look for another leader. Do not spend resources to benefit the general population when you need them to keep the loyalty of the essential coalition. When institutions constrain leaders to build a large coalition of supporters, as it occurs in democracies, private wards are inefficient. Each member of W, which was the winning coalition, receives too little. Leaders must rely on public goods. Such institutions induce weak loyalty. When W, the winning coalition, is small relative to S, the selectorate, private goods are more efficient and loyalty is high. Instead of categorical ties, it is more useful to distinguish governments on the institutional characteristics of S and W, as you see in figure 2.3. And it kind of lists a whole bunch of the options there between monarchy, junta, rigged election autocracy, limited franchise democracy, and goes so forth and so on. As both of these get larger, you tend to see more democratic regimes. Okay. Democracies have a large S and a large W. Okay. Monarchies and dictatorships have small s and small w. When W divided by S is large, loyalty to leaders is weak because the chance of being in the next winning coalition is high. For example, this happens in democracies, monarchies, and juntas. When W divided by S is small, there is a strong loyalty norm. All political systems produce both public and private goods. The mix of two varies with selection institutions. As the size of W increases, leaders shift the mix from private to the provision of public goods. Imagine each unit of public goods has a price of P. A leader has some revenue, denoted as R, to spend on a mix of public goods, G, and private goods, Z. Because a government cannot spend more than R, we know that R equals the price times the public goods plus the size of the winning coalition times the private goods Z. Suppose a leader spends all of R so that R equals PG plus WZ. The amount of private goods WZ is then defined by R minus PG equals WZ. This means that each member of W receives Z equals R minus PG over W. W is the denominator, means that as the size of the winning coalition increases, each member receives a smaller stream of the private goods. When S divided by S is small, if they defect, a member's chances of being in a future winning coalition and receive a smaller amount of private goods is small. Leaders have a natural preference for providing private goods. Challengers are more likely to promise improvements in public policy. To keep W members happy, incumbents can provide just enough private goods and public policies that are no worse than those promised by the challenger. When W divided by S is large, private goods are spread more thinly and cannot make up for failed public policies. A member of W, chances of being excluded from future winning coalitions is small and loyalty is weak. As S shrinks, the risk of defection decreases and the incumbent's advantage in using private goods gets smaller. The incumbent's advantage in using private goods is greater the smaller W is in relation to S. W divided by S is the single biggest predictor of a leader's survival prospects. W divided by S determines how much a leader must spend to maintain coalition loyalty. When W divided by S, loyalty is large, loyalty is weak, and leaders must spend a lot on public policies to preserve their coalition. When W divided by S is small, loyalty is strong, and leaders must spend less on public policies to preserve their coalition. Large coalition leaders are compelled to emphasize effective public policy. Small coalition leaders are compelled to emphasize inefficient governance and have more funds for their personal bank accounts. Selectorate theory implies several basic principles of politics. Regimes with large winning coalitions focus on effective policies, including foreign policies. Because the loyalty norm is high, regimes with small w can tolerate more domestic and foreign policy failures. The likelihood of a leader's political survival increases as W divided by S decreases. Conversely, it decreases if W divided by S increases. A regime becomes more democratic. As W divided by S increases, leaders must spend more to maintain loyalty and have fewer discretionary funds. Corruption and kleptocracy increases as W gets smaller in relation to S. The foreign policy of small coalition leaders are driven by the pursuit of opportunities for enrichment. The foreign policies of large coalition leaders are driven by the pursuit of policy compliance by foreign governments. When leaders can change institutions, they prefer to decrease the size of W and to increase the size of S. When coalition members can change institutions through a coup, they prefer to increase the W to S ratio. When individuals outside of W can change institutions through revolution, they also prefer to increase the size of W divided by S.